Hello, friends. We continue our work, and we today we'll talk mm, about this classification, about classification according to the ontological status of the object, and for before all our lecture, I must say about previous moments where we said about and present classification according to the fullness of reality where we use dualism how approach and what I mean that where we uh, try and it was topic for our previous lecture. We um, try to talk about how reality what we can catch, or maybe we will use only part of this reality. It is very important. It is idea of previous classification, and today uh, we will try to talk about the uh, not about surface, but about depth of this reality. We will try to talk about this surface. We will try uh, realize move from surface to depth, and it is another approach where we will distinguish to these moments. It is something unessential, it is the sphere, and it is something what we usually name in philosophy substance or essence of reality. It is ground for these properties, for example, or accidental predicates, for example. Okay, and we will move from surface to depth to essence of reality. It is another aspect and the way of classification for branch in dualism. Uh, Here it is like surface and ground, but it is like where, if we will remember about previous way of classification, it is like where I mean, for example, global version of dualism, or I mean only local version of dualism. In other, but the very close moments. Okay, and accidental or epistemological um, dualism divide two moments: predicate and property dualism, property and predicate, and substantial ontological, like a synonym, naturalistic, and transcendental version of this dualism. And of course, I repeat it again, we will uh, realize move from surface to depth, depth. Okay, and before I must say some words about non-traditional, non-conventional moments, this classification, because when I firmly this idea and said have said that it is a controversial notion to substantial. It is something unconventional in philosophy of consciousness, and I must show the cause of this very shortly. Why? Why it's so? And here you see these moments too. Mm, I choose this version of classification because for me it's very useful And I think it's very useful for catching the essence of different um, movies, different version of development in dualism. What I mean? I mean that where we, for example, will stand on accidental position. For example, when we will have a predicate, when we will use this approach like predicate and property, it is we will imply that we use dualism not something like something real. It is only something what we use on surface. And in background of this position, we will and must remember that it is this standpoint what really non-monistic. It is not dualistic position. It means that this approach in dualism very closely to monistic position, very closely to, for example, physicalism or phenomenalism, no matter today. But it is not essentially ontologically dualistic position. It's very important, and this classification uh, um, give us this ability for for catching these details, for understanding. And it is very closely to another idea when we talk about accidental. It is like methodological and epistemological position when we don't know what really exists inside, but we can talk about what we see before us. And of course, it is a description from position of B. It is classification when we use so-named main question of philosophy with two main aspects of this question. And it is to help us to catch different moments and different details with the development of branch of dualism. That's why it is not so easy, maybe, firstly. Um, and here I show some article papers, what we use for explanation um, different branch inside substantial dualism. It is transcendental and naturalistic. It is two unconventional approach, and that's why I used these and in other papers where I find different explanation for this classification. That's all. It is only introduction to our main lecture. It is not so easy, but I hope it will be interesting. Okay, first, accidental dualism, and of course, predicate dualism. Predicate is mean that when we try to describe in our language reality, we use different predicates. We use different words for explanation and for description. This and for this position, essentially, um, I say so. It is two main aspects, essential aspect of this um, approach in dualism. It is firstly, essentially for this approach, it is firstly essential for a complete description of the world and not reducible to the physical predicates. It is like definition for this approach. And two main examples, opposite examples. We when when we can talk that some predicates can be reduced to the physical notions and structures. Um, Predicates more correctly. It is example water, and these chemical formula. What I mean? I mean that always when we use the word water, we can mm, write not water but this formula, and we not lose some means, some important details, or what else. Um, it is very interesting because some words and some predicates can be we can reduce to these mm, physical to these physical predicates. Direct example, it is when we it is of course maybe only about, it is not exactly, but it is what we can catch for our understanding. It is only illustration what we mean when we use notion predicate dualism. Um, what mean that we can't reduce some predicate of different signs to the physical predicates? We can represent in our mind situation when we try to um, describe the situation of Battle of Poltava, or we can use Battle of Waterloo with priests in Book of Priests, Christ, where we will use two version of predicates. Firstly, physically, only physical predicates when we can describe only objective structure of what happened. Something moved to another, destroyed it, and what else? Um, and we of course can um, understand that we lose some means. Very essential means and sense when we have this description, because when we talk about battle of something, and when we talk about historical events, we always mean that we try to catch not only physical reality without characters of different persons, without his own motives and what we all know. We try to understand another, and historical science show us these predicates where we try to understand motives, feelings, emotions, goals, and etc. Okay, and of course, it is the conclusion of what I said before. Of course, not particular, not correctly. It is empirical science, more exactly. Of course, not all terms of these signs, but the main part of these terms do not allow such reduction. We can't reduce this. Okay, and why? Why it's so? Why we can't reduce? Um, and firstly, we of course can have two controversial branches in science. Objective structure, it is the main object for physics. Um, and when we talk about in other sciences, for example, history or something another, or when we use our usual words, these words uh, explain not real structure. These notions reflect not only structure, but more correctly and more essential, explain and express the consequences. Um, for illustration, we can remember, for example, storm. Yes, it's physical phenomenon, but for us, and this phenomenon um, has his own structure, of course. But for us, when we use this word and talk in our communication, conversation, we mean not only the structure, we mean that it is big problem. For example, for me, if I will before or about this term, or it is problem when I use this word storm. For me, it's mean big problem for my house, for example, and I will storm. Storm is problem for me. It is not. These words for me mean another what maybe it must be if we will see from physical position. It is of course very not so exact explication and explanation, but it is very important for understanding what I mean. And another reason, but very closely positions, of course, very close position. Natural spices terms and functional terms. The same idea. When we use our usual words, we um, usually mean function, but not structure. It is example of problem natural and functional terms. We will talk about this in our seminars. Okay, and of course we must say and about two very famous representatives of modern dualism in this branch of dualism. Davidson and his main work in this sphere, and further in his work. Okay, next step in our work, and here property of dualism. Of course, firstly, we will we must remember about difference predicate dualism. What difference from predicate dualism? And of course we can say that it is like next step in depth. Yes, that's why we can say that it is strengthening as this process, because if we will if predicate dualism saw the presence of two essentially different types of predicates, but very important in our language. And this branch and this approach not explain why we use different language for explanation, definition, reality. Why so different language exist? Uh, and when we talk about property dualism, it is of course more objective approach. And here we see that these properties is something objective. It is not only function and aspects of my own language or language of science. Okay, and that's why we can say that the essence of this approach in dualism consists in what? Firstly, if we will applicate it to philosophy of consciousness and phenomenon of consciousness. Uh, Consciousness, it is something what merge like effect, what we can't wait, what we can't wait when we try to understand how fun, how happen work in brain. It is emergent property, something new, what we can't reduce to another for physical, for example, predicates or properties. And very important for us say, but no matter that it's so, because it is emergent property and it is not effect of a separate substance. It is only effect, emergent effect of brain, of work of brain. Very important. Of course, it next step in development of dualism, but it is not substantial dualism, what we will or study in next step. Okay, an example for this we all know about phenomenon of life, and if we will talk about this phenomenon um, until the beginning of the 20th century, it was believed that phenomenon of life requires of dualism of properties. What does it mean? It means need requires unreducible life force. Uh, of course, it's so closely in this version of example. It's very closely uh, mm, to substantial dualism, not accidental. Okay. Um, yes, yes. What we have said. And very influential author here it is Searle, John Rogers Searle. Different authors here you see Kripke and Chalmers. It is opponent, I think, very interesting opponent for Searle, and we will spend some time for explanation and studying works Searle and Chalmers, of course, too. Okay, finally, substantial dualism. Next step, and we uh, deeper and deeper move inside the reality. Remember first our uh, picture. Yes, we deeper and deeper inside. And here we see two types of substantial dualism. Uh, Medieval position, it is naturalistic. Uh, More correctly, and the essentially substantial dualism, it is version here. Transcendental in two versions, philosophical and religious. Uh, we can say another epistemologically and ontologically. Of course, it is too unconventional selection, but we have said about this. Okay, I try to explain these approaches and types of substantial dualism, and this explanation will be like proof why need use this classification inside substantial dualism. Um, Here, codification of concepts, two main notions: substance and dualism. When we talk when we use word substance, it means that it is think what characterized by his properties. But for example, our my pen has different properties: form, uh, mm, colors, and etc. And nevertheless, these properties, it is not all these things. It means that substance, something more than a set of inherent properties. It is like base career for them. It's very important what we mean before when we talk what we mean when we talk about in picture when we talk about picture, and we said about ground for different effects. And dualism of substance mean that there are two such contradictory bases we have said, not just properties then. Okay. Remember about dualism in first definition. In here we will talk about ground, substance, and four unmaterial properties. And if we will talk about ground like physical ground, of course we will mean naturalistic dualism. If we will talk about non-physical ground for um, unmaterial property, we will talk about transcendental dualism, of course. In two versions, I have said it before. Ontologically, it means that exists something really only objectively. And if we will talk about epistemological or philosophical position, it's mean more correctly philosophical. It means that it is constituting of the subject, this reality, what exists like ground, and the essence of this substance. It is to be ground for unmaterial properties. We will talk, and this substance exists only or two in my own nature, inside of me. We will talk about epistemological or philosophical dualism, version of dualism. And here two schemes and bases, simple version and reinforced a little bit. Firstly, it is immanence. It is the criteria for classification in this scheme. And here you see two version of notion transcendence. It is transcendence firstly when I exit to another sphere outside posit, and when I not exit but I move inside so deeply that I can't to see this, can't catch. It is so deeply inside posit. Here trans exit and dive inside. Okay, and here immanence and distinction between ideal and physical. First scheme, you see this. It is something transcendental to world. I mean, phenomenal or world of things. It is sphere of experience, and this aspect is something what not transcendental but transcendental, yes. And this sphere, it is eminence sphere, sphere of eminence. Um, it is something what exists only inside of world. It is another, it is something what we catch only when we divide its reality. For example, Indic notion of form and matter. And here, notion of transcendental things. For example, transcendental subject, if we will talk about theory of Kant. And here it is psychophysical laws about what said David Chalmers. Okay, here it is ontological sphere. It is like something one. And it is phenomenological sphere. This division to this sphere. Okay. And here we see difference between transcendental dualism and naturalistic dualism, this main notion. And here we can ask why this notion exists not in exist in ontological sphere. Why? When we talk about naturalism, it is must be something what exists inside. And the answer to this question, it is only one, because these laws, it is not something what we can show in our experience. We only must to find it. That's why. Okay, and in other version, this distinguish between naturalistic dualism and naturalistic dualism and transcendental version of dualism to this scheme. Here the world, all these sphere is world, and from position of naturalistic dualism, two main controversial reality. It is reality phenomenological experience from first phase, and physical reality what we can catch in our experience from third phase, like object. It is something what exists before me. It is not something what exists in my own sphere. Subjective, I'm sorry. And transcendental version of dualism. Here we see the transcendental aspects of reality, transcendental subject and object, and here reality divide two, like here, but it is a fact or a function of ontological sphere. Here and here. Function, what I mean? I mean that here we see and we must to cut the reality only from first phase position, and it is sphere of gnoseology when we use this notion in Kantian theory. It is something one we can catch only like intuition, and we can express it only in process where I start and search my own intuition. It is the new words for philosophy when Kant told about this. And all this world have another part, another aspect, what I can catch from third phase position. And here, of course, we see empirical sciences. That's all to these positions and to this version of dualism. Final notes and quotes. Very shortly about only I will not talk about all moments what I planned here, but only about personality and the one quotes for naturalism. It is a general scheme for naturalism and transcendentalism. I think that we talk about this scheme and different here positions of these positions in our seminars. I mean, and one quote for naturalist. I'm sorry, here in Russian language, it's my mistake. I'm sorry, and it's mean naturalistic version of dualism. And here quote of David Chalmers in his book The Conscious Mind. And here we see that I show you that the author talk about psychophysical laws, what exists um, in eternal sphere. It is not. That's why I remember you that. That's why I in this hymn, I said that it is ontological sphere. That's why it is eternal and having. You see these scripts. I will not read it, but the main idea of this, you see, it is idea that it is idea that these laws will work only when the condition for explanation this law uh, was realized. Only after that, function of some system, for example, physical system, physiological system, like my body, or body different being, only some moment when these conditions was realized, my function and work of my body will automatically accompanied by a consciousness. It's very important for David Chalmers. The main problem and very interesting argument of his theory, it is argument of zombie. We always can represent system without consciousness. Why it's happened with us? Why happen in this reality system with consciousness? Because we know in experience in our own body and in science too, that all function of our body organism uh, and not all activity of our body we can catch in our consciousness. Not all. What it mean? It mean that the main idea of David Chalmers, that we can represent at least that our body can be without consciousness. Very interesting. Uh, and here about if we talk here about naturalistic dualism and here transcendental dualism in two versions I have said, and more important, it is representative. Richard Sweetburn and here Lowe and Mangin. We will. I hope that we will talk about his works in our seminars, and we will uh, have analyze different moment of these works. Okay, that's all. And here next topic for us in next video. Okay, thank you very much. I hope it will be interesting for you.